I'd like to go ahead and call to order the meeting of the Oklahoma Space Industry Development Authority meeting, the board meeting, and we'll gavel in. Okay. First of all, let's see here. Okay, would you like to do a roll call before we introduce guests?
Okay. Mr. Howie?
Here.
Ms. Gurry? Here. Mr. Gillette?
Here.
Mr. Schultz?
Here.
Ms. Rolls?
Here.
Mr. Henry? And Mr. Siegfried are absent.
Okay, thank you. So we have some guests in the audience. If you all would be willing to introduce yourself, we would love to hear who you are. Who wants to start? Yeah, that's great.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Douglas Swigert. I'm with the Space and Defense Advisory Services. That's based in Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Good to see you all again.
Thank you.
John Wedekamp with the Oklahoma Aerospace and Defense Innovation Institute at OU.
Excellent.
Mark Everhard with Synergy Engineering.
Josh Langston, Synergy Engineering.
Great. Very good. We have
Maurice
some,
Stockton, Ready 3.
okay.
Michael Berkeley, Premium Aerospace Center.
Summer Jones, Premium Aerospace Center.
Okay. Excellent. Okay, let's move on then. Welcome all our guests. We're glad you're here. We're going to move on and approve the minutes from the June 5th meeting.
Does anybody have any questions about the minutes? Is that working?
There was one error, on the first page it showed Mike Schultz was absent.
It's corrected.
Okay.
Okay, if there's no other questions, is there a motion to approve?
I move we approve the minutes.
Second.
Okay, Mr. Howie?
Aye.
Ms. Gurry?
Aye.
Mr. Gillette?
Aye.
Mr. Schultz?
Aye.
Chairman Rolls?
Aye. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on.
Okay, same with the treasurer's report. The paperwork was sent out via email. Are there any questions about, that was the end of the fiscal year roll-up. Any questions about the treasurer's report? If there's no questions, is there a motion to approve?
So move.
Second.
Mr. Howie?
Aye.
Ms. Gurry?
Aye.
Mr. Gillette?
Aye.
Mr. Schultz?
Aye.
Chairman Rolls?
Aye. Okay, thank you very much. We're moving on to the the fifth agenda item, and that would be the executive director report.
Well, trying to get to advance here. Thanks, Eric. Is that me, Eric, or is that you? Can you advance it to the next slide, please? All right, so just got back from the Paris Air Show. This is a every other year event. This is a pretty large gathering. It's the largest gathering, isn't it? Events of aerospace companies in the world. They do this every other year on odd-numbered years. The Oklahoma Department of Commerce hosted a delegation of about 83 attendees, and 12 companies, 2 universities, and I think 3 local economic development authorities also were in attendance as well. Director Howie was there. Former OSIDA board chair Robert Cox was also in attendance. This picture was right outside our booth. Our booth for this trade show was about the size from this side of the room to the back wall. It's a huge presence at this show, and we're right in front of one of the doors. So when you enter the hall, the USA hall, we're one of the first ones you see, and other states are there: California, Connecticut, West Virginia, Ohio. They're all in Florida. Florida had a huge presence as well. So lots of other states are there, and it's really crucial that we, as the state, make our presence known there. Governor Stitt was also there. As in this picture, you see U.S. Senator Mark Wayne Mullen, was also in attendance. We also had 3 state representatives and 1 state senator in attendance. Actually, it was our chair of our Senate Budget Committee was attending the show, as well as was the pro tem for the House, Kyle. Thank you, Kyle Hilbert. Appreciate that. Yeah, we're in attendance as well, and it is a really good show for us. A lot of great contacts. We're still following up on a few of those, including a Canadian space company that is looking to come in August to come and see the facility. So the next slide, if I can advance. Where am I going here? Okay, so working with the Oklahoma Broadband Office and Office of Emergency Management, we're trying to utilize, and we're going to talk a little bit about one of our other ARPA projects, but on this one is our high-speed internet project. This is, we've got high-speed that's currently coming into the park. We made the investment about 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, to move fiber that had not been in the park before. We had copper line into the park, but not fiber. And so we were limited on the capabilities. Got that into the park to our headquarters building. Boeing uses that when they come. They'll use our telemetry and monitoring room as a station to send their data back and forth to Seattle when they do their testing on the airplanes here. But we want that and more access throughout the park, at the tower for sure, down to the hangars, throughout the industrial park. We had a group come in from OMES, and they said, well, this is easy. You just put out some wireless out here and you cover everything. Well, wireless has some challenges to it. It's not a perfect median, and it certainly doesn't provide the security that some of our tenants and future tenants would probably want. So we're looking at hardline fiber and then maybe a mix of wireless in some areas of the park as well. So interesting, because that fiber is owned by one company. I don't think it works like telcos, where other phone companies can jump onto a copper connection and move traffic up and down it. I think fiber, as I understand it, belongs to that company. So we're looking at some challenges with how do we get fiber to the rest of the park and make sure that other entities want to get to bid on this if one company already has fiber going into the park. So we're working with OMES, the broadband office. We also had a security review that took place back in March by the FAA Secret Service, and they told us as well that security on high speed is going to be a requirement for spaceports, and they want to see that we have something like that in place. So we're still trying to work out what how we're going to implement this program. So we'll continue working with these entities as we try to move forward in that. We've got a meeting scheduled for tomorrow, which with the broadband office, which I hope will shine a little more light on what some possibilities are for us.
Do you have any kind of an estimated timeline yet? Or-
We know what the drop dead time is. That'd be December of 2026. We have to have this money spent by then. I'm hopeful that we can get some clarity on how we move forward in the meeting tomorrow, and we've got another meeting with the OMES group next week, such that maybe we can get to the point of reaching out to contractors and identifying who those contractors are before winter, and then hopefully have something started in place by spring of next year of putting something into getting an idea of what the mix of capabilities will be, and then getting that installed in the park. I want to
Okay.
put some long timelines on this. I hate to say we'd like to have this done by winter, because nothing ever goes as planned. So my goal, and we're working as quickly as we can, and as quickly as the process allows. Man, this is not the one I had saved. I wanted to show you, Eric, I think I've got a different program, and I think I wanted to show you some pictures of the facility that I want to, if you'll bear with me for a moment, I've got some better slides. Eric, can I come and find you? Yeah, okay, yeah, this is it, Eric. All right, we're good. So, I'm good. This is it. This looks to be it. So, we've had a lot of rain this last spring. It's a remarkable amount of rain. We've had at least 6 incidents of more than 1 inch of rain falling in a short period of time. This is aircraft that came up from Altus Air Force Base back in June to relocate to avoid a storm in that area. And so they call us on occasion, and we'll get calls from Vance as well that they'll ask if we've got space available on the apron for them to come and relocate their aircraft during times that they think something might be coming their particular direction. This is an incident of our far north hangar. There's a drainage system on the north side of this hangar that I think over years has we've got a local farmer that tends this. I just think years over time in tilling, we've got a backup that's created this small lake. It takes about a couple of days to drain this. It drains slowly. It does drain. It just doesn't drain fast. And I don't think it's designed to drain fast either, but it's draining much slower than it has in the past. We're looking to rent a transom, and our crew will do some digging to try to alleviate this particular situation from happening, or at least move the process a little quicker.
So there's not a drain, it's just it's a drainage ditch, and it's filled up over time through cultivation?
Yeah, there's a field right next to it, and I just think, my non-engineering perspective on it, and our guys looking at it, it appears that appears to be the problem. It's draining. Our crew is hesitant to do too much to it because we don't want to create another problem down the way. If we dig a deep trench, then we've got water that could come to the headquarters building if we overflow it and we send it down to the ditch outside the fence.
So we haven't gotten anybody to take a look at it that does drainage?
We're going to try this route first. Our engineer has expressed interest in looking at it. We're going to see if this process might work before we expend any money on hiring an engineer to alleviate the challenge.
Can I interrupt for just a second?
Mhm.
If we turn off these lights here, is it going to affect the video quality? Because they're strobing and driving me nuts. Both of them, that whole line.
Yeah, they're just flickering. There it is.
Thank you.
Sometimes that's more.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Yeah, that's, agree.
So we've got a project queued up that we've got some buildings we want to raise. Some are inside the fence, some are outside the fence. So you can't just push them over, even though they're abandoned, there's nobody in them. So we've got to go and get an assessment from an environmental company to tell us where any asbestos or ACM might exist in these buildings. They've got to identify it. Then we hire a contractor that comes and removes that and disposes of it in an environmentally safe location, and then we're able to raise them. This is one of the buildings that, when they came out to do the assessment, we had them do. This is the Highway Patrol building. I think we've mentioned this before. This is a molehill. This is like 3 stories below ground that you cannot, or 2 stories below ground that you cannot see, and of course the 1 story here. Those, you see some air conditioning units on the left side of the screen. There are 6 there. 5 of those went out in May, and so Highway Patrol replaced 5 of those, and so in doing so, the contractor noticed some things in the boiler room where all those are connected, and so we had the examiner come down and do an assessment of that room. We actually had a couple of examiners come in and assess that room, and then we also did an air quality sample in the building as well that we'll share with DPS. They've got 1 more year on their contract with us. They've been out here since the 1980s. They predate us. They've maintained that building for the last 35 years. They only call us in there when they need something from us, so we don't see the building on the inside day to day. So any deterioration that's happened in that building, we're unaware of until they call and tell us, hey, there's a problem here. So we're trying to work with them to try to address any concerns that they may have And so that's one of the deals, is we did an air quality assessment of the building, and then we're trying to take care of that. And we also had them look at, Eric, is it me or you? Okay. This is one of the buildings we look to have
Before you
rated.
leave the highway patrol, are they going to renew their lease? You said it's 1 year left on it?
We'll find out. They,
Have they given you any indication?
well, an indication I might point to is they got about $60 million that they will look to invest in a facility. We hope that maybe they'll spend some of that money here, but that'll be entirely up to DPS and what they do with that. I think the plan is to build well, I'm going off course. This is something for DPS to talk about, but we're hopeful. We're going to do everything we can to try to keep them here. They've been a longtime tenant, major tenant, and they're a good partner to have here.
We need to work very closely with them in the coming months to ensure that they stay
Yeah.
and don't move to somewhere else.
Absolutely. I'll appreciate any guidance and assistance you can provide on that, Senator, and anybody else on the board. This is one of the buildings that we've identified to be demolished. It doesn't look as bad there. It looks even worse now. And that garage door on the north side is completely demolished. It's an attractive nuisance. There's graffiti on the inside. The inside of the building's been burned. The roof is unfixable. The entire building itself, and it just needs to go. They did an assessment of that building as well as this one. This is one that sits right on the street that comes to our headquarters building. So this is one that you pass by to get to our building. It's sitting on a pretty sizable lot. It's an attractive nuisance. There's holes in the roof. None of the windows are in place. We've got boards screwed over the door, but that doesn't keep critters and ne'er-do-wells to try to getting inside the building and doing. All the walls have been punched out. All the copper's been removed. It just needs to go. There's no saving that one. And it would clear that lot. If we could clear that off, appearances will help to move the property for somebody that wants to develop something on there. It's hard to envision an empty property. This is another one. This sits catty corner from our building. That whole left side, there's no roof on that side of the building at all. This side, you can see the garage doors have been wind blown, and then the office space needs a lot of help. There's really no help for that building as well, and it's an incredible eyesore because that's on the other main road that brings you right into the airport, right into our headquarters building, and it's right across the street from the large warehouse building and right next to the rail line, so it doesn't serve a purpose. This is a building that was, from our records, I think it was built in the 1980s. It connects hangars 231 and 232. It was an office building, and I think asbestos was stopped in '79 or something along those lines, but they say they still have to test buildings that were built up until 1988. So this is another building we want to have removed. It doesn't serve a purpose. It had a flat roof, and it was unmaintained for 25 years probably, so it can't be fixed. So we're looking at removing that building, and how far back we go, I'm not sure, because it does have some walls that touch the inside hangars, so we'll have to take a look at finding how far back we can tear that one out. This is one that's right next door to our maintenance barn. This is a huge building, and this is when the assessor came and looked at this one, there's a lot of piping in this building, and I don't know what they did in this building. I don't know if it was paint. It's a paint shop. There's some racks that hang in there. If anybody watching this broadcast later knows what some of these buildings are, I'd love to hear the story. But this is one that we'd like to have removed. It's right there along the main apron, so it'll have to come down at some point as we continue to develop. This next picture shows what it looks like on the inside. And actually, this is a pretty good depiction of most of those buildings that I've already showed you. This is kind of indicative of what you see inside of each one of those buildings I've just shown you. It's a very similar situation. Those aren't skylights, and those aren't lights that are on. That's the sunshine peeking in. Next slide. This is a building that sits just south of our maintenance building. I'm not sure what the purpose of it was. It's storage right now for just stuff, but it needs to go as well. It's on a lot that faces the main apron. So this is one that, and it's inside the fence. So these last three buildings that you've looked at have been inside the fence. They're not as urgent, as the ones outside the fence are. But these, it just makes costly sense to remove them all at the same time. Next one. This is one when we pulled up to, the assessor kind of chuckled. This is a fuel barn. There's fuel tanks. This is where they would store the fuel tanks for the planes. Anybody want to tell me what this may? Look at the corrugated sides. Anybody want to guess what that's made of? It's
Asbestos?
It's an asbestos building. Those corrugated panels are made of asbestos. It's a fireproof building built for that purpose. So I've not seen anything like that before. He laughed. He said, "Well, this is not friable material, so it can be dismantled and stacked and taken away without having to use the spacesuits in most instances." And these buildings are out away from anybody else, so there may be some opportunities there. But we'll find out what all of this costs when we have the contractor come out and assess it. And then we also have 4 boilers, 2 boilers on hangar 233 and 234. Entire boiler rooms and air handling units, and that are kind of sit on the east side of those hangars. Those are the hangars that are occupied and leased by Premium Aerospace. They're going to do, when they do their renovation of those hangars, that's going to be the forward-facing part of the hangars. Most of them, they kind of face the apron out, but they're going to put their office spaces and their approach from the east side. So those boiler rooms, part of their renovation plans are to remove those and put office space on that side. So we need to clean out those boiler spaces from whatever materials are inside there. So when we have that contractor come out, we've got a list of projects for them to handle. And that concludes the executive director report and the facility report.
Any additional questions or follow-up for Director Craig?
When is the contractor assessment?
So the environmental guy came out. He sent the materials off to be tested, and it'll probably be 2 weeks, maybe 3 weeks before he gets the results back and sends those back to us. Once we have that, then we know where the material is. Then we reach out to the asbestos contractor to find out when they can come out and give an assessment on how much it's going to cost to have it removed and abated and those things. So as soon as we get that information back, then we'll start the process of finding the contractor.
All right, thanks, Ray.
Excellent. Any other questions? Thank you, Craig. Appreciate all that information. All right, so let's move on to our next agenda items. The first thing will be, we'd like to discuss the proposal we received from the Artemis Group to develop a strategic plan for OSIDA that really is intended to enhance our capability to expand both the utilization of the spaceport and the space industry in general within the state. So does anyone have any questions regarding that agreement?
Well, I've got some
Yes.
slides here I was going to go over,
Oh,
so
good.
if it's okay with you,
That'd be great.
I'll just jump right in. So,
Before we get too far into the Artemis discussion, I don't know if your presentation had to do with the Artemis proposal, but I would ask that if anyone does have a business relationship with the Artemis Group, that now would be an appropriate time to recuse themselves from the discussion and deliberation and vote. And typically, the best practice for a recusal is actually to leave the room and then to have us convene after the fact.
So I do have a business relationship with the Artemis Group. So I recuse myself, and we discussed that at the last meeting. So I will happily leave, and you can fetch me when you're ready.
we will fetch you.
Yeah, thank you.
Are we voting on this today?
Yes,
Can we vote without her?
yes.
Okay.
Thanks to Vince. Showed up, Vince.
Okay, so this is, I'm going to give you a quick summary of what we understand about the proposal. We've had it signed by the Artemis group, and so from their perspective, it's approved. And the next step is for us to proceed from our part. So the purpose is to gain board approval to proceed with the contract. Next slide, please. The cost is $16,000 a month at $250 an hour. I'll let you do the math of how many hours that is. Period of performance is through the end of December. There are options to extend beyond that, but that's not what we're considering today. If we want to extend beyond that, then we'll have another discussion. The agreement may be terminated for funding insufficient. I'll let you. I'm not going to read that to you, but we can. There are terms and conditions for termination, and they will not. An interesting clause. They will not charge us for time spent for travel, but we will reimburse them for travel expenses. Next slide, please. I think many of the board members have seen this before, if not all. But these are the areas that they will include in their focus: medical certification, training, human research, human-tended biotech, spaceport utilization, manufacturing international norms of behavior and conference. In a sense, this is developing a strategic plan for the state of Oklahoma, not just for the spaceport. And that'll shape, once we have that in place, that'll shape the way forward of the other tasks that they have, which I'll include on the next slide. Next slide. So we'll have, as we develop the strategic plan, we'll have a bi-weekly discussions with the Artemis group. The target is to have a strategic plan done within 30 days of the signing of the contract. That'll give us and them guidance on how to target businesses and federal, state, and local agencies to achieve our objectives. In addition to that, they will attend several forums with us to include the Space Symposium, the Farnborough Air Show, and probably others. But those are the ones we know about. Next slide. We had an executive committee discussion. I'm the only remaining person on the executive committee, so I summarized. If somebody objects to something I say, well, this is just what I heard. So the Artemis Group proposal provides an appropriate approach to nurture space capability development within the state of Oklahoma. We have they have significant capability to help us down the road that we've been talking about for several years now. And we have given the increase in resources that we've had through federal and state government, we believe it's wise to make an investment at this time. And so we think it's a cost-effective path to take, and we're proposing, and the next slide, that we approve, the board approve the proposal to move ahead. It says 7 July 23. That's the date of the proposal. Of course, it'll start whether we approve. So to sum up, I move that we approve the Artemis contract as proposed through December of 2023.
Question, when would this date start? So it would be like 1 August or?
As soon as we sign the contract.
As soon as we sign, okay. Are they prepared to go as soon as we sign?
Mhm.
Okay, great. Second.
I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but it does say that one of the deliverables will be provided within 30 days of the date of execution, and the date of execution is going to be the date that the agency signs the contract. So
Right. I said that, but I guess I wasn't clear about it.
Okay.
And it's their
Okay.
strategic plan that they've said that they'll provide within 30 days.
Okay, okay, great.
I would just like to say, this is really great. OSIDA's been doing really great work out at the spaceport for a long time, and we're finally in a position where we can expand that vision to across the whole state, the way the statute has charged us with. So I'm in full approval of this, and I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Mr. Chairman, a question of our Attorney General representation. You have reviewed this contract, you see no problems with it, and you're okay with us approving it?
Yes, we reviewed it, we incorporated the state's general terms and conditions, we included all of the required certifications that are just general to contracting. The agency is exempt from competitive bidding, but there are still other Central Purchasing Act requirements that the agency must agree with, and so we are comfortable with the agreement as proposed.
Thank you.
Okay, so we have a motion and a
Second.
second.
Mr. Howie?
Aye.
Ms. Gurry?
Aye.
Mr. Gillette?
Aye.
Mr. Schultz?
Aye.
Okay, so we're approved then, and
She's going to go
You
get
can have our
Brenda.
chair back.
Absolutely. Well, and to concur what you iterated, General and Colonel Gurry, since the inception of OSIDA, since '99, and even since we had our spaceport license in 2006, the focus has been on the facility, on the asset itself. This agreement moves us toward a statewide strategic plan to follow, as you said, our mission to be the state, the agency for the state regarding space. And this plan expands the focus on space to include all state aspects in the state of Oklahoma, to include the development of training capabilities, utilizing the assets at the FAA Mike Monroney Aeronautical Center, the Civil Aerospace Medical Institute at FAA CAMI, the research universities at OSU, OU, TU, and the regional colleges, the National Weather Center in Norman, manufacturing in the state, MRO in the state, the career tech system, and then, of course, to build on the capabilities of the Oklahoma Air and Spaceport Industrial Complex. So appreciate your support on this, and this is a big day for OSIDA. Thank you very much.
Okay, next
Approved and
next
done.
item?
next item.
Okay, excellent. So the next.
Chairman, so that you
Yes.
don't have any doubt about what happened, we voted to approve.
Okay, great. Thank you. All right, good to be back. So our next topic is regarding water and wastewater project with Centergy. So, Craig, is that something you could kind of?
Yeah, Eric, I'll kind of lay the groundwork. In September of 2022, the Oklahoma legislature entrusted Oklahoma Space Industry Development Authority with $4.25 million, and I already addressed $250,000 of that. It was going to be set aside for our high-speed internet expansion into the industrial park and the airport. The other $4 million, it was designated for our water and our wastewater system at the park. $1.5 million goes to our water system, and $2.5 million is designated for our wastewater system. And so we went through the OMES process. We wanted to make sure that there would be no questions asked about this, because it is federal monies. We want to be responsible with the money that we've been entrusted with. So we wanted to make sure that we shined a light on everything that we did on this aspect. So we went through the OMES process. We identified a number of engineering companies that have capabilities. We went through the interview process and the capabilities, and we selected with the OMES the Centergy Engineering Company out of Tulsa, Oklahoma, and they are here. And Eric, if you want to load up their demonstrate or their PowerPoint, I know that they want to visit on that and talk about the scope of work as they see it, and the costs and fees that are associated with that, which I'll be coming to you to ask approval for.
Good afternoon, board. My name is Josh Langston with Synergy. I'm a civil engineer firm. So Eric, please, forward. We went to the site and we've identified, based upon the information in the solicitation, several areas that need attention on the site. There's the sanitary sewer connection that the residential housing for Burns Flat, the connection to the park, there's a connection there that needs to be upgraded. The wastewater pump building that supplies the potable water to the park needs significant upgrades. Water well number 108 and the ground storage tank needs some upgrades there to be done. And then there's, at the sanitary sewer lagoon systems, there are significant upgrades and repairs that need to be maintained or made to that system. So, advanced slide, please. Here's a blow up of the well number 108. It would work in conjunction with 735, 424, and 253 that currently provide water to the park. With this, the addition of this well, it will just enhance the availability of potable water to the park. And the groundwater storage tank is a 1.9 million gallon tank. It currently needs some minor repairs to it. There's some valving and flotation repairs that need to be made to it, to water level indicators. The next slide. Here's the one I mentioned before, where the Burns Flat residential housing connects to the park sewer system. That appears to be, there was a monitoring or a measurement system there at some point in time in the past. It has deteriorated to the point that it's not functional anymore. It needs to be replaced. So, next system, or next slide.
Josh, I might back up on that. That's a critical aspect to try to, because they have no way of knowing the amount of flow that they're getting into their system from Burns Flat. So this is one of the key things they stressed to us from the beginning, is we need to get that number, and then they can approach Burns Flat or whatever needs to be done.
Okay, thank you. Within this is the water pump building that's pressurized the system, the potable water system for the park. We've identified several issues within that building that need to be replaced. There's currently some pumps that need to be replaced in the building. There's some piping infrastructure that needs to be replaced. The valves have failed and are not working correctly. One of the requests was the building envelope upgrades. It's a non-insulated building, so that they get a lot of heat loss in the winter. One of the requests was to add a backup generator to the site to provide power to the pumps to maintain the water pressure throughout. If there's a power failure on site, make sure that everybody has water. Then there's also some derelict pumps in the building that just need to be removed. So, next slide, please. Out of the lagoons, the wastewater comes into the first two cells, the one on the north and the one in the middle. It goes into a diverter system where it splits the flow between the two lagoon cells. The first cell on the north side is in fair condition. The middle cell is in significant need of repair. The berms that hold the water in have deteriorated and sloughed off, and they're in imminent, they're in need of repair, or else they will fail and the lagoons will just drain out. And that'll be a significant DEQ violation. There's some piping that needs to be replaced around site. The third cell, the one on the south side, according to DEQ regulations, it no longer meets the freeboard, which is the water level to the top of the berm. It's currently sitting at 2 feet. DEQ requires 3 feet, so those need to be raised. And next slide, please.
Is that a new requirement?
It's several years old. I don't know when it was changed. So then, Mark, you want to talk about this one?
Yeah, our system has just degraded that much over time.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
This is just an estimated programming cost, design-wise. based on the scope of work that we've established in meetings with them and what we've gone out and looked at, the approach that we were going to take, because from the slides you saw, it's our anticipation that the lagoons by far are going to be the main source of eating up what money you have. But our approach was to, because we've run into this several times before, is basically create a menu that we can do the design now and have everything done. And then when we create the construction documents, situate them such that we have all these different, we establish what we want to base. And then all these other items like the pump house, the water tank, the water well, et cetera, treat them as alternates. And they all get bid that way. Then you can basically pick what you want or what you can afford now. And then the advantage to that is you know what your costs are going to be, but also if you don't have the funding for it, and it may be another year before you get funding, at least the design part is done. The only thing that design would have to do would be, if there's any regulation changes, update the drawings. But overall, that's a really small thing to do, as opposed to starting over from ground zero and doing your design.
Synergy has a wealth of experience working with state projects and with the state of Oklahoma. I think they even mentioned they worked on this building, but they've got experience, and why they were selected partly is because they do have experience working with water systems and wastewater systems similar to this at state parks and at a couple of prisons, I think, in the state of Oklahoma. So they certainly understood our system. That's one of the reasons why they were selected. So what I'll be coming to the board requesting is approval from the board upon OMES. The engineers are looking at this proposal as well, and pending any approvals or changes that they may have, I'm requesting permission from the board to pay Synergy at least $380,000.
I have
no
a
more
question.
than.
So it says down here that with all your list of everything that has to happen, it might exceed the 4 million funding that we have. And then you said that the ponds are the real cost draw. Did you have any kind of, is it like half of that?
This stage, never passed.
Okay.
We did get some positive news here this week. We've got a project going on at one of the prisons in Boley, Oklahoma, and this is the first time this has been tried in the state. They're actually using microbes to actually eat the sludge in the pond. They've done this in Missouri and Kansas and had great success. And it's the first time it's been done here. And so they've been out there at least 2 months, and things are going really well. And we anticipate that being successful. Well, we had them look at these lagoons because this lagoon is 3 times the size of what John Lilly has. And but surprisingly, the preliminary sludge depths that were measured are very low compared to what we thought.
Thank you.
So the state has moved the $4 million in ARPA money into an account designated for us. It'd be a drawdown, and so we would utilize that ARPA monies. We would apply to that monies to pay these fees. And as they said, if it does exceed the $4 million that is covered by ARPA, then we'd look to the prep monies for things above and beyond that.
Madam Chair, some generic system questions. Refresh my, no, this is gonna be for y'all. Refresh my memory. So we provide tap water to everybody inside the old base, and we provide wastewater service for everybody inside the old base. We
And
don't,
inside the old base and pretty much everybody on the west side of Highway 44. So a good
so
portion.
we are providing wastewater service to at least everything west of the highway.
At least much of that, true.
But we don't provide clean water to those folks. We provide wastewater.
The system is designed such that we can turn a valve, and so if Burns Flat needs, we can provide them potable
in-
water.
In an emergency.
Exactly.
Do we have any billing structure in place for those services?
We do, and we've got an agreement. We need to get an updated one, but we have a current agreement with the city of Burns Flat on the wastewater system, and I'm pretty sure, I don't know, when was the last time that they utilized our water?
Burns Flat on the FOSS system, do you know? Or are they on wells? I can't remember. Yeah.
I'm not even going to venture a guess on that. I'm sorry, sir.
All right. So,
I can send a text and tell you before the end of the meeting, though.
yeah, that's just my information. So, for our engineers, we're talking about spending probably at least $2 million revamping old lagoons. What would the cost to engineer new ones? Ballpark me. Okay. Good enough.
Any other questions?
How old is the agreement with Burns Flat? Do we know?
2018, 2016? Okay, it may be older than that. It's probably the mid-2000s, 2009, 2010, I think is what the date on that was.
Do we have to wait to get the meter in place so that we know how much they're using?
Yes, that'll be helpful. We've got an agreement that shows how much that they agree to pay us and how much they agree to send into our system. We need verification of what that amount is so that we know if it's above or below that amount. But we've got figures on how much they're supposed to be sending to us.
Well, then when are we going to do that? It does seems to me that in the scheme of things, that's pretty minor, but important for us to get done.
Right. We're working on a new agreement with them, and then once they put the device in that tells us what's going through the system.
My question is, when are you going to get the device in?
As part of our analysis of the system, one of the pre-design services we're going to have a environmentalist go out there, install a temporary meter on the incoming line from Burns Flat. I request they have them monitor the meter out there for a minimum of 2 weeks. And with that 2 weeks, you can see the highs and lows of the system that comes into that. Then we can extrapolate a little, stretch that out to a month to see how much within your average month would come in.
Okay.
And you're doing that almost immediately or yes? Okay. Excellent. Okay, any other questions? So I believe we need a motion.
Well, Craig, I really like the approach of doing a menu type selection so that we can go, it'll all be engineered, then we can go through the process afterwards to decide what we can and can't do, especially as funds allow. So I move we approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? Kim, will you call roll, please?
Mr. Howie?
Aye.
Ms. Gurry?
Aye.
Mr. Gillette?
Aye.
Mr. Schultz?
Aye.
Chairman Rolls?
Aye. Excellent. Very good. Very good. Those will be important projects to move forward. Okay, then we have another item, and this is regarding the Delta Airport Consultants. And Craig, I would ask you again to just give us a summary of this issue.
Absolutely. Eric, if you can pull the original back up. So our engineer of record for the airport is Delta Airport Authority. We have to go through that process they're our airport record for about a 5-year period. We just did that last year. When we did that, we also looked at, because of capability that Oklahoma Aeronautics Commission has, they can act as an agent for airports in the state and help them and do the engineering on processes along these lines to help them, or to help airports that don't have the resources to do the engineering and stuff. They've got a project in front of them, they need to have somebody review it, and that's what OAC does and offered to do. This board approved us utilizing that process last winter, and so we are now utilizing that process as we look to do. And you heard at the June meeting when Matt made his presentation, this particular project, next slide, this particular project would be the main runway repairs. And so this entails joint seal removal and replacement, spall repair. The main runway has mostly been done. There's still some portions of it that have not yet. You know, we get a little bit of money from JUA. Every year, we can set some of that aside, we'll save it up, and we'll do small projects is what we've been able to do in the past, about $1 million, $1.25 million projects in the past. With the prep money that we've been given and trusted with, we can do a much larger project. So our aim is to complete the main runway. We've not done the taxiways on that airport, and I'm not sure in the last probably 15 or 20 years, maybe even longer than that. So we plan to address the taxiways, and there's, 5 taxiways, Alpha, that need attention. And then, of course, the apron, that is, spreads all the way from the tower south past the Premium Aerospace, 96 acres of concrete and pavement out there. And you saw 3 planes from Altus that have utilized that parking space out there. There's a lot of spall and upheaval that pavement hasn't been addressed since the 1950s. So this is a project that seeks to take as much of that as we can. Also, the electrical system. We've got incandescent bulbs on the runway. We'd like to replace that with more efficient and brighter and more, what's the word I'm looking for, reliable system. The tower sometimes has difficulty making the switch, and they have to do things manually. So this engineering project will address that as well and improve and renew the lighting system as well. Then we'll repaint the runway, and we'll put new signage up as well. So we've set aside about $2 million in JUA funding and upwards of about $8 or more million in our prep funding on this project. The figure that you're going to see in just a moment is similar to what Synergy did. To do an engineering project, you looked at about 8 to 10% of the project cost in the engineering. That's what this reflection is $815,000 is what they're telling us that's going to cost to put this, to do the planning and the assessment and the scope of work for this. When we worked with OMES, their fee on doing the analysis of these projects was significantly more than what OAC is going to charge us. So with the $815 that for the engineering fees plus the 2% that OAC will charge, it should not exceed $850,000. And what we hope to do as once we get the project and once we get the identify a contractor to do the work, then we'll know what each spall costs to repair, what each joint costs to reseal, what each panel costs to replace. And as we spend that money down, if we still have more money in that targeted amount, we can continue to move down on that apron and fix more and more of that concrete down the way. And then we hope to, if the prices are good and we have the contractors on site, to go as far as we'd like with the money that we have, if we want to add to that amount. And fix as much of that as possible so they can be in place for airplane storage, hangar development, other development on that part of the property. So what I'll be coming to you with is a request to move forward on paying the $815,000 plus what OAC will be asking for on top of that, for a figure not to exceed $850,000. I don't know if there's another
Is OAC a
slide.
partner all the way through?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
Well, it says, is OAC a partner all the way through for their 2%? It says their engineers are doing the initial assessment. Are they going to be a partner all the way through with their engineering staff?
So once that's a Good question. I'll have to do a follow-up and ask that. And I know that Delta will have an engineer on site as the
Okay.
contractor's working. I don't think that they're overseen by OAC at that point. I think OAC looks at the records at this point at the front end of it, and then they'll help us with the closure of it. So they're acting as our agent. But Delta engineers will have an engineer on site as the contractor is doing
Okay.
the
All
small
right.
repair.
Thanks, Craig.
And that's typical. That engineering company will do that, and that's what they did for our last projects. Good question.
Other questions? Okay. Do we have a motion?
I move we approve the project pending OAC Commission approval.
Second?
Okay. Thank you. Kim?
Mr. Howie?
Aye.
Ms. Gurry?
Aye.
Mr. Gillette?
Aye.
Mr. Schultz?
Aye.
Chairman Rolls?
Aye.
Thank you for that clarification. That is one caveat in this, is that as OAC is reviewing this, they will take it to their commission, and that when they have their next meeting, they'll vote to approve that. So I wanted to get ahead of this before we meet again, so if they approve it before then, that we can quickly move forward. So this is an efficient way to make sure that when OAC approves it, then we'll be ready to go. We'll have already done our end. So thank you very much.
Excellent. Those will be very good improvements. Thank you.
Absolutely. Yeah, we don't have anything if we don't have the runway.
Yeah. All right. And moving on to agenda item number 10, board member comments. Any comments?
Well, run meeting, Madam Chairman.
Quick.
Maybe a
Short.
new record.
Yeah. Well, it's because I had to leave for part of it. All right. Barring no comments, okay? Do we have a motion to adjourn?
So move.
Second.
Mr. Howie?
Aye.
Ms. Gurry?
Aye.
Mr. Gillette?
Aye.
Mr. Schultz?
Aye.
Chairman Rolls?
Aye. All right. Meeting is adjourned.